we've got these costs, right? I've written out an equation for costs. We can contrast that with the marginal benefit of producing, which is going to come from the price, right? We know that the marginal benefit for the producer is the price. And so what are the firms trying to do? So throughout this course, we're going to assume that firms are only trying to do one thing, which is make as much profit as possible. Actual businesses do have some other goals, but for simplicity, we're going to say they only care about profit. Right? If you go into taking more economics classes, you'll find you'll find discussion about those other goals as well. But this, in principles, they're just caring about profit. That's it. So we only care about costs because costs affect our profit, right? The higher your costs are for the same amount of revenue coming in, right, the less money you're making. So that's profit. So the question that we're going to ask, right, this is the behavioral question. What do the firms actually want to do in order to maximize their profit? They have a goal, right? They have the benefits, which is the price, and they have the costs, which are the costs that we've just outlined right here, right? How can they choose a quantity? That's the thing they have control over. They don't have control over the price, but they do have control over the quantity. How can they choose a quantity that's going to give them as much profit as possible? Okay. So remember, this firm is a price taker. It can't choose the price. All it can choose is its own quantity. That's it. That's the only thing they have control over in this world. So let's think about profits. Okay. So to figure out how to maximize profits, we're going to need to figure out what profits are in the first place. No surprise there, right? So profit is total revenue. This is money coming in minus total cost. This is money going out. Total revenue minus total cost. Two notes about this. One, because we're in a nice, simple, competitive market where you don't have any control over prices, we can get a lot simpler about total revenue. Total revenue is the money coming in, which, if you remember from our agriculture example, we already did this, which is just the price you sell something for times how many of it you sold, right? How many did you sell? How much did you sell each of them for? That is your total revenue. TR equals P times Q. We're going to be using that. The second thing to point out is that this is a bit different than the profit that you've probably learned about in your accounting classes. Economists and accountants think about profit differently. Now, it looks like they're the same, right? If you're an accountant, you're probably familiar with money in minus money out, right? But the difference here is that these include the opportunity costs, which an accountant would not do, right? So when we are looking at total costs, that includes the opportunity costs. So we might well have a business that's bringing in a lot of money, and our bank accounts are getting bigger and bigger, and yet the profit might be negative if we could have made more money doing something else, right? Which an accountant would say would be silly, but an economist would say, well, that's what we're looking at. And can we account for those opportunity costs? All right, so we have what profit is. Let's see what we can do with it. We want to maximize that profit. We're going to do that with marginal choice. Okay, so we got profit, which is total revenue minus total cost. Now I said we can split out total revenue to be price times quantity. We also have total cost, which is fixed cost plus variable cost. Right? So we've sort of specified a little bit more clearly both sides of this. Now we have profit a little bit more fully as total revenue, which is price times quantity, minus fixed costs minus variable costs. So how can we get from this total revenue and total costs to those marginal revenues those marginal benefits and marginal costs? So we just need to take this whole equation and turn it marginal. And it just sort of works. If you're a calculus person, we're just taking the total derivative here, and it just sort of works. But I can tell you that the marginal profit, the additional profit you make from selling one more unit, is the marginal revenue minus the marginal cost, which makes a lot of intuitive sense. Right? Think about what I'm saying here. How much more profit do you get by selling one more unit? Well, how much additional money did it bring in, and how much additional money did it send out? Right? If you're making $1 million of profit, you sell one more coffee mug. You sold that mug for $3. It cost you $1. Well, then that's $3 in minus $1 out. You're up 2. So now you have $1.2 million of profit. Right? So our marginal profit is MR minus MZ, marginal revenue minus marginal cost. What's marginal revenue? This is what our marginal benefit is going to be here, right? If we only care about profit, then the marginal benefit that we get from selling one more unit is just how much more money we make, right? So, got the marginal profit marginal revenue minus marginal cost. All right, so we've gotten back to our marginal benefit, marginal cost, which we're now going to call that marginal benefit, marginal revenue, because we're talking about a firm that only cares about making money here. Now I can tell you that in order to maximize this profit, we want to set marginal profit to 0. Why is that? Well, that's basically the point at which our marginal benefit is going to equal our marginal cost, right? If we're making $1 million of profit. Should I sell one more coffee mug? Well, if I make $3 more, it's going to cost me 1. My profit's going to go up. Then yes, I should make that extra mug. Should I make the next one after that? Well, if I can sell it for $2.99 and it'll cost me $1, well then yeah, it's still worth it. I keep going and keep going until the next one that I would sell doesn't bring me any more profit. The marginal profit is 0, and I'm like, well, I guess I don't need to make any more. I should stop. Right? That is the point at which your profit is maximized. When making more stuff doesn't bring you any more money, and making less stuff also doesn't bring you any more money. Your marginal profit is 0. So if marginal profit is 0, you got 0. 0 equals marginal revenue minus marginal cost, which means that marginal cost equals marginal revenue. We're going to maximize our profit wherever we can find that marginal cost equals marginal revenue, which of course should look familiar. This is just the golden rule of economics once again. So we've got the golden rule of economics. As we know about the golden rule of economics, we can solve pretty much every problem in economics with it, as long as we know what these two sides of the equation are. What is our marginal revenue? What is our marginal cost? Well, we can go one step simpler here. Right? I keep marginal cost on this side, but I can tell you exactly what marginal revenue is going to be. Every time we sell one more unit of the good, we make the price. Right? If you're selling mugs for $3, you sell one more mug, you get $3 more. So the marginal revenue is just going to be whatever the price is in our competitive market. So what this is saying, as an individual firm who observes the price and has no control over it, I can maximize my profit if I simply keep making stuff until I hit the point where my marginal cost is equal to the price, and then stop. Which again, makes a lot of sense, right? Should I make another unit? Well, is it going to pay me more than it's going to cost me? Then yes. Is it going to pay me more than it's going to cost me? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, no, the next one's not going to pay me more than it cost me? Well, then I should stop, right? That's all that this is saying. That's how I'm going to maximize my profit. The other thing to note is that this marginal cost, where we have price equals marginal cost, that marginal cost is a function of the quantity, right? It's going to change with the quantity. Our marginal costs are going to be different depending on what quantity we're talking about, which means this is telling us how we can go from the price to figuring out what quantity we should set, right? Because we set this equation up, but we're solving it to figure out what our optimal quantity is, right? So we can go from the price to the quantity supplied, which is what the supply curve is. It is a way of going from the price to the quantity supplied. So having this equation is the supply curve. If I solve this for an individual firm, that is that individual firm's supply curve. I add that up among everybody who's providing stuff, and suddenly I have the market supply curve that I started with. So this is showing us how we can go from that idea of profit maximization to understanding how it is that individual firms follow the golden rule, to how we can figure out how firms take the price and turn it into a quantity, to our supply curve. We've come full circle.